Praise Yahweh. Okay, so today we're going to be starting in chapter 3. Okay, chapter 3 of the first book of Yisrael. He who rules is Yahweh, making the connection with Yahweh. And so we're going to be starting on page 15. Okay, starting on page 15. And the title of this sermon, and this is from the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Okay, the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And the title is, The Clock Will Start Ticking Off the Last 3.5 years, called the end, number 2. Years of secret negotiations by the quartet and the Pope have led to what we will see next in prophecy, giving the holy city to the Pope. So, years of secret negotiations, okay, trying to, like pastors pointed out years and years and years ago, and he's continuing to point it out, how, the Pope, the Catholic Church, wants to come out on top with this new world order. And so one of the main things that I want to emphasize this evening, that pastor's been emphasizing, that Yahweh's been emphasizing, is belief in him. Okay, and these prophecies are for who? Who are the prophecies for? For the believers, right? The prophecies are for the believers. And so even as these prophecies come to pass, does that make you a believer just because the prophecies come to pass? No, there's things that you have to do to build your faith in Yahweh. And Yahweh shows us these prophecies. He gives us these prophecies to strengthen our faith so that we can learn how to, trust in him, knowing that he's in full control and nothing is going to be done outside of what he has established. And so the prophecies are just one of the things that he uses so that he can build a relationship with us, so that we can trust him, okay, so that we can learn to trust Yahweh. So the prophecies are very, very, very important. And another thing about the prophecies prove what? They prove that Yahweh exists. Praise Yahweh. The prophecies prove Yahweh exists, right? Because no one else can do this. No one else can predict with this type of accuracy the way that Yahweh does. Okay, he gives us the conditions. He tells us how and why these things come about, and he tells us what to look for. He gives us all of the information that we need just so that we can learn to trust him. Okay, not just so that we can learn to trust him, but that's one of the main reasons, so that we can learn how to trust him. Okay, so we're going to start here at the very beginning here. Pastor says, please be seated. The peace of Yahweh be with each and every one of you. The prophecies are just falling right into place now. That's what I wanted to start on here this morning. Turn over to Revelations chapter 11. And so remember the date here again. The date is 4/18/2003. Okay, 4/18/2003. And was that the last 3.5 years back then in 2003? No, we're in that time period right now. Okay, so isn't it amazing that Yahweh is allowing us to cover this information so that we can rehearse the things that Pastor taught us, all of these over 16 years ago, because this is not the first time that he's brought this information out. But we're going over this right now so that we can start paying attention, so that we can see how these things are going to take place in this time period. Matter of fact, who was that? We saw on the news yesterday, who was the man that asked for the Holy See to be involved in everything that they do? Okay, and what did he say? How did he say it? What did he say? We pray that the Holy See is involved in what now? I can't remember exactly how he worded that. No one remembers? That the Holy See guides us in everything or something like that? Well, we'll have to check it out again. Maybe we'll bring it up next week. But this is what Pastor's saying. They're actually asking to be guided by the Catholic Church. Okay, and this is what's been going on for years. They're almost at the point where they can take over. But are they going to take over? No. How do you know that? Prophecy. Praise Yahweh. Okay, so the prophecies are falling right into place right now. So the next verse here says, I was going to tell you there are a couple of things you need from the store. I don't know if you know how dangerous heartburn is or what causes it. There is stuff called sea gas, and it's made from fish. That Yeshua used to eat. It's not the same fish. They're different fish, but the same kind. I kind of woke up in a silly mood this morning, and it has gotten worse ever since. Anyway, you need it. Sea gas. It's a real big army of enzymes that you need in your stomach. It will stop heartburn in about 2 minutes, straighten out your stomach, and get your digestion to going again. Okay, so sometimes, it's like pastor just throw something in there and we may not even know why. Okay. But what did he always tell us to do? He says, pay attention to what? Every word. Okay. Every word. Because he says, you really don't know what heartburn is or the problems that it can cause. But he said, here's some stuff that can help you knock it out in 2 minutes. Okay. So everything that he tells us, regardless to how, out of place it may seem to us, is very valuable information. And we have to understand that. So here we're going to talk about the judgment that's given to the nations. So pastor picks up and says, what I wanted to pick up with first, that you need to get this in your mind, is judgment given to the nations. This didn't just come about overnight. The groups of nations have been working on this for years. The hatred that is forming now and among the nations, you'll see displayed very soon. It's never taken place instantly. We see it creeping in, and we know this prophecy is going to be fulfilled very soon. Now, again, this is 2003, and we're in 2019. And it seems like it's taken a long time, doesn't it? But we see these things unfolding on a regular basis. Is there any doubt that there's hatred among the nations? There's no doubt. I can't remember who it was. One of the leaders said something about they could have stopped this war if they would have just paid attention to what took place in Yemen or something like that. Y'all remember what I'm talking about? I think we saw that on the news like last week or the week before. No one remembers? Y'all about as bad as me. But all of these things are in the news. It's a lot to keep up with, But the information is out there. But, there's threats going out. And like Yeshua said, kingdom against kingdom, nation against nation. Okay, these things are more severe, more dire in these last days because of the technology, the ability to wipe out life on earth. And that's why this time period is so dangerous. And it's so exciting for people in the house of Yahweh because we know that, the time is at hand, is very near for the kingdoms of the earth to be turned over to the saints of Yahweh. So this judgment given to the nations, it says here, the hatred is forming now and among the nations, and you will see this displayed very soon. And it never takes place instantly. We see it creeping in, and we know this prophecy will be fulfilled very soon. This article came out on CNN, and it's called International Parties Agree to the Committee's Peace Plan. And you need to get that full sermon I brought out. I think it was entitled Judgment Given to the Nations. And you may want to highlight that. Okay? You may want to highlight that. Judgment given to the nations. Matter of fact, let me see something. Define judgment.
The ability to make considered decisions or come to sensible conclusions. Do you want to hear the remaining one?
Yes.
A misfortune or calamity viewed as a divine punishment.
Okay. Did you hear that? Okay. So one of the definitions given is a punishment. Okay. It said a divine punishment or calamity. And this is the judgment that's given over to the nations. They're going to be punished, or, this calamity is going to befall them because of the choices that they make. Okay. All of these things are going to come upon them because they have not allowed Yahweh to guide them. Okay. They chose not to use the system of Yahweh. So continuing on here, in Revelations 11, verse 1, there was given me a reed like a measuring rod, and the Malach stood saying, rise and measure the temple of Yahweh, the altar and confines. In verse 2, but the court outside the temple, leave it out. I've harped on this for years. The only reason I will keep going on it is because I want to make sure everyone understands it. You must understand that Yahweh prophesied these things in advance so that we can know what we can trust, the next prophecies to come true when we see those. Okay, so there's been prophecy after prophecy after prophecy fulfilled, right? Okay, the birth of Yeshua, the birth of Moshe, the things that took place, all throughout the history of mankind, the birth of the two witnesses, everything concerning pastor, the work in the House of Yahweh and its work in these last days. So everything that we know about the prophecies that has been fulfilled with 100% accuracy, correct? So why would there be any doubt concerning the nuclear war? Why would there be any doubt? Okay, there should be no doubt in any of our minds concerning these events. And so if we believe that those prophecies are going to be fulfilled, then why is there any doubt concerning the type of men that we need to become? Okay, what's so difficult? Well, that's like a loaded question. What's so difficult about becoming like Yahweh? Well, we already know the answer to that, right? Life, right? Genetics, the way that we were raised, our own rebellion, our foolishness. So, it's going to be the most difficult thing that we do. But the push, the desire should be there continuously, right? The push, the desire to become like Yahweh should always be there. Always listening to the instruction coming from Yahweh's house, trusting in Yahweh. Again, this goes back into trusting in Yahweh because, again, the plan, part of one of the prophecies, Yahweh says, I will make man like me. Right? I will make man just like me. Okay, that's a prophecy. And he's going to do it. Okay, there are going to be some who are going to be exactly like Yahweh. But, how are we going to be like that? Where do we have to go in order to be like Yahweh? To the house of Yahweh. Okay, when we come here, do we do our own thing? No. We have teachers set up to guide us and to turn us from the way that we think. Okay, we can't bring our own foolish thoughts to the house of Yahweh and think that Yahweh is with us. Okay, the instructions come from the priest. Okay, it comes from pastor to the priest and then to the people. Then you guide yourself and you guide your families, right? Is it any other way? There's no other way. Okay, it comes from the top down. Okay, and if we think we can go around that, then we don't believe in Yahweh. Okay, we don't believe in Yahweh. So continuing on here, Pastor says, I wrote about this 7-year peace plan back in the 70s in the Mark of the Beast. No one believed there was going to be a peace plan until it was signed September 13th, 1993. Okay, so again, Pastor knew about these things from where? From the scriptures, okay, from the scriptures. And he wrote about these things in the 70s, right? Can you imagine, from the 70s all the way up to 1993, waiting on this to be fulfilled? Can you imagine what Pastor was going through, trying to convince people, trying to show them, look, you need to keep the Sabbath day. You need to trust in Yahweh. Okay, you need to do these things. Okay, do you know how many people have come and gone from the house of Yahweh? You know how many people Pastor has begged to just stay here, just continue to listen, don't leave because it's costing you your life? You can't go anywhere else and have life. Nowhere. Okay, and if we don't believe that, then we're going to die. Okay, we can't just be here. We have to be here, listening and training under the authority that Yahweh established in his house. Okay, this is believing in Yahweh. And Yahweh he gives us the prophecy so that we can believe him. Like, look, I'm showing you these things. You're not going to listen to me? Okay, here's a man to teach you. Listen to him. Believe into the one sent. Believe in him. Okay, when he's not there, who's talking to you? Pastor? The priest, right? The priests are the ones that Pastor send to represent him. We represent Pastor, right? And when you go home and you talk to your wife and your children, who do you represent? Okay. You represent, right? Okay. Well, you're sent by the priest though, right? You're following the teachings all the way down, right? Praise Yahweh. It goes downhill, man. Okay. It goes downhill. Yahweh, Yeshua, Pastor, the priest, men of Yahweh, families. It's passed down from generation to generation. This is how the information passes. Okay? It doesn't go from Yahweh to Koheleth, give it to pastor, then give it to Yeshua, then give it to a kid, then they give it to the deacons. It doesn't work like that. That's confusion. That's the world that we see right now. Okay? That's the world that we see right now. So continuing on here, establishing this faith, this belief in Yahweh through these prophecies, paying attention to what's going on in the world. Okay? And the Pope wants to come out on top with this religious system that's against the way of Yahweh. So Pastor wrote about this peace plan back in the 70s, and it was signed September 13th, 1993. Then no one believed that it was going to be shut down. Okay, no one believed. It's a 7-year peace plan, but it's going to be shut down. They thought there would be true peace forever. It was shut down in the 3.5 years, just as the prophet said. It was even confirmed with a man named Rabin. Okay, in the King James, what's the word there instead of Rabin? Many. Man, okay, praise Yahweh. Many, okay? Rabin, like the prophecy said. Now it is shut down and nobody thinks it's going to start back up again. It's hard to get people to believe. It's hard to get people to believe. So this is when it was shut down. Pastor said, look, it's shut down just like the prophet said, but it's going to start up again. It's going to start up again. There was no doubt in Pastor's mind that it was going to start up again. It was just a matter of when. Okay. And Pastor knew, he was watching for certain prophecies, certain other things to take place. And then he told us when it was going to start. 1 Corinthians 14, verse 22. It says, therefore, other languages are for a sign, not for those who believe, but to those who do not believe. However, prophecy is for the believers and not for the unbelievers. Okay. So again, the prophets, the men were saying, look, all these different things are for signs and wonders. Okay. The written word of Yahweh is given to us. The prophecies are given to us to believe, not everything else. Okay. Either you believe in the one sending what he teaches or you don't. Okay. Remember Yeshua said, even if one rose from the grave, rose from the dead, they still wouldn't believe, right? Okay. How many people entered into the promised land after seeing all of the wonderful works that Moshe performed in front of them through the authority of Yahweh? 2? Out of like millions of people who left Egypt, only 2 got in? Great day. What about in the days of Noah? How many people survived when the whole world was destroyed by the flood? 8. Y'all got y'all numbers mixed up, don't you? It was only 8 people out of the whole world. I'm sure someone told Noah, what makes you right, Noah? How you know you right? The fact that it's raining and you're trying to get on this ark with me. Right? I'm on the boat. You can't climb up here. How tall was the ark? Like 75 feet high? 45 feet wide? You're not climbing on the ark. Okay, but Noah was right? Because he believed in the testimonies of Yahweh. He believed in Yahweh. And Yahweh spared him in these last days. What makes you right, Yisrael? Well, if you don't have like 3 billion sunblock, you're going to be a little toasty when those bombs go off. Okay, I don't think that makes sunblock that high. You're not going to be protected from this. All right, you're not going to be protected from it. So Pastor's right because he's inspired by Yahweh. Okay, he's giving us the information, these warnings, these prophecies to guard us. So prophecies are for the believers to strengthen our faith. Does anyone have, well, who could just tell me what Luke 24:25 says? O fools of slower heart to believe all that the prophets have spoken. What about Isaiah 8:20? Who knows what that says? Praise Yahweh. To laws and to the prophecies, if they speak not according to this word, is because there is no light in them. Praise Yahweh. Okay, so let's continue on here. It says that the house of Yahweh is actually built on prophecy, and it is for the believers so that they can believe and have confidence and trust in Yahweh. Okay, so highlight that. Okay, I highlight that. The house of Yahweh is actually built on prophecy, and it is for the believers so that they can have confidence and trust in Yahweh. Okay, so again, as we see the words of Yahweh being fulfilled in these last days, as we read the scriptures and see how the word of Yahweh has been fulfilled, we should be the strongest people on the face of the earth. Okay, we should be the strongest people on the face of the earth. But it takes time to get to a certain point. And this is one of the reasons why Yahweh is holding things back. Okay, so that this strength of character can be developed in us. Okay, because the world is a powder keg. And if it was left up to certain individuals, the world would have been blown up 7 times over by now. Okay, and you can believe that. But Yahweh is holding these things back so that we can develop the character that's necessary to restore all things. Okay, to show people how they should truly get along and how they should truly live. So these prophecies are so that we can have confidence and trust in Yahweh. This is what he's doing for us. So what Yahweh wants you to develop in your mind is trust in him. Okay, this is why Yeshua preached. He said, the reason I show you these things in advance is so that when they come to pass, you may believe, all right? You will know that there was a prophet among you, and this was true. Okay, these things are done so that it can strengthen our faith, so that we can believe in Yahweh. Okay, this plan for salvation is a plan of life, and Yahweh gives us these words so that we can realize that, look, outside of what Yahweh is saying, there's death. Okay, there's death. Man doesn't live by bread alone, but by Every word that proceeds out of the mouth of Yahweh does man live. So are the words that Yahweh say optional or like, well, if you feel like it, if you choose to? No. Okay. Who's heard pastors say before, like, humility is a law? Has anyone ever heard him say humility is a law of Yahweh? No one's heard that? I see some heads nodding. Okay. Well, he said humility is a law of Yahweh, but it's not like in the 613 laws. It's not one that says thou shalt be humble, right? But this is the character that Yahweh wants us to develop. Yahweh says, we have to be humble and teachable and so on and so forth. So it came out of Yahweh's mouth. So it's not a suggestion. It's a command. It's a teaching. You have to become humble. You have to be humble and teachable. We have to be humble and teachable. Okay. Everything that Yahweh says, matter of fact, I think Pastor actually said this. He says, everything that Yahweh says is law. Okay. Everything that he says is law. Okay. So it may not be one of the 613 laws, but it's law. Okay. Because he said so. Kohilith, go to bed. Oh, I don't feel like it. I'm going to do what he tells me to do. Okay. You need to go to bed at 8 o'clock every night. Why? Why I got to go to bed, Yahweh? Well, you never have to wake up. I see your point. Do what he says to do. I don't think he'll rule over us like that. But, everything that he says is for our benefit, whether we understand it or not. Who understands every aspect of all 613 laws? Who understands every aspect of all 613 laws? No one? Who understands all of the intricacies of every single prophecy that has been fulfilled or has yet to be fulfilled? So we still have a lot to learn? Oh, I don't. We still have a lot I have a lot to learn. I was answering another question. So we still have a lot to learn. Okay, we still have a lot to learn. So let's continue on here. It says here, then you can trust in Yahweh forever. Okay, so we're paying attention to the prophecies. We're learning how to trust in what Yahweh says. And eventually we're going to get to the point where it doesn't matter what Yahweh says. We'll believe it. We'll trust in him. Okay. And remember, Pastor said it's not always going to be Yahweh that gives you instructions. Okay. Who did he say is going to give instructions? He's going to pass it out. It's going to come down to someone. Okay. Pastor said he gives out instructions in these last days to the priests, to supervisors. And if we don't listen to, the priest or the supervisor, whoever pastor sends, then we're not listening to him. Okay. We've seen this pattern in the scriptures before, right? Who am I thinking of right now who people didn't listen to and they rejected Yahweh? Samuel is the one I was thinking of. Okay. Excellent class participation, man. Excellent class participation. So Samuel, right? They rejected Samuel, right? Well, Samuel was like, they're not listening to me. And Yahweh said, no, Samuel, it's not you they're rejecting. I sent you, Samuel. They're not rejecting you. They're rejecting me. They're rejecting the instructions that I'm trying to give them. So when pastor comes to us in the name of Yahweh, when the priest comes to you in the name of Yahweh and you don't listen, who are you rejecting? You're rejecting Yahweh. My feeling's not going to be hurt. I feel bad, sad, but you're a free agent to make your own choice. We can rejoice together throughout all of eternity, but if you want to be stiff-necked, stubborn, and rebellion and die on your sin, that's your choice. And I'm not trying to be callous, but we have to get a grip, Yahweh says, look, I'm the one that's giving you life. I'm giving you the opportunity for salvation. Look at these prophecies. Learn these things. Pay attention. Trust in me. Now listen to your teachers. Listen to your teachers. Okay? That's what he's given us in these last days, to listen to our teachers. Continuing on here. Let's see. Trusting in Yahweh. So does anyone have positive law number 1? No one? Who knows what positive law number 1 is? Believe in Yahweh as the only source of power. I'm almost scared to ask if you got this one because no one seems to have anything here today. It's all on me. Who has positive law number 172? Nobody has that? Okay. Does anyone have Acts chapter 3? You got to be kidding me. All right, I'm going to read it. Does anyone have anything? Who has something? Show me your hand if you have anything. All right, so somebody has something. All right, we'll get to y'all in a minute then. All right, Acts chapter. And you know what's funny is, like, in the world, I'll be scared to death right now because of the ridicule and things like man, this guy don't know what he's doing up there. But in the house, I don't have to worry about that stuff. It's like, I just got to move on with the lesson, and I don't have to worry about the ridicule, do I? Not to my face. What'd you say? No, I'm just playing. Acts chapter 13. Where is that at? That's up here, right? What is it? Acts 3 verses 21. I should have just had y'all find it real quick. So verses 21 and 22. Acts 3:21, it says, whom the heavens must retain until the time of the restoration of all things, about which Yahweh spoke by the mouths of his holy prophets since the world began. For Moshe truly said to the fathers, Yahweh, your father, will raise up for you a prophet like me from your brothers. Him you will hear all things, whatever he says to you. Okay, so again, this is talking about trusting in Yahweh. Yahweh says, I will raise up from among you, from one of your brothers, and you'll listen to him. Okay, listen to what he's teaching you. Okay, and remember what the law says. Don't go to the right or to the left. Do exactly what you're being taught by the one that Yahweh raised up. Exactly what he teaches. Okay, there's no wiggle room in there. Okay, no wiggle room when it comes to obeying the instructions from Father Yahweh. Okay, believe into the one sent. And then when he sends people to tell you things, there's no argument there. Either you accept it or you don't. Simple as that. Either you accept what's being taught in Yahweh's house or you don't, because Yahweh is not going to alter the prophecies. He's not going to alter his laws to save your life. Okay, now the scripture shows that he will do things 2 times, 3 times for a man to turn him from the grave where he's going, but he's not going to change his plan to save a life. Okay, remember, he didn't even spare the Malachim. Okay, we have to comply with what Yahweh has established in his house, and if we don't, that's on us. Okay, it's on us. Very serious issue here. So continuing on here, let's see. Yachanan, who has Yachanan 14, verse 29? It may say 28. Who has that? Excellent.
So now I have told you before it comes to pass, in order that, when it does come to pass, you might believe.
Excellent. Okay. So again, we're still solidifying. It's still like, going over the fact that we have to believe Yahweh. Okay. Yahweh showing us these things to strengthen our faith. He goes through a lot to strengthen our faith. Remember, there's a lot of things that he does. He gives us the artifacts. He gives us the garments. He gives us all these things to remind us of him continually. Okay. Continually remind us of him so that we can be strengthened. Okay. Let's see. Last one here. I don't think anyone has this one. I'll go for it, though. 1 Yachanan 5:13. I think someone does. Oh, right here in the front row. All right, 1 Yachanan 5, verse 13.
These things I have written to you who believe in the name of the Son of Yahweh, so that you shall know that you have an eternal life. You who believe in the name of the Son of Yahweh.
Okay, praise Yahweh. Okay, so you who believe in the name of the Son of you who believe in Yahweh and believe in the name of the Son of Yahweh, you follow the instructions that comes from Yahweh top down once again. Okay, and so when you put your trust in these things, in this system, you'll follow the teachings. Okay, you'll follow the teachings. And this is what Yeshua did. Yeshua taught the way of Yahweh, and people chose to either believe, and some chose not to believe. Okay, and again, Yeshua did many wonderful works. Healed the sick, raised the dead, walked on water, had fish get money for him, turned water into wine. I'm sure people love that, right? But how many people stuck around because of the word of Yahweh itself? Right? But didn't Yeshua question them, though? He said, will you also leave me? Right? Because they left at one time, remember? They also left at one time. And then they came back. They had to be called out again. All right? But again, these are for our learning. Okay? The book of Yahweh, the Holy Scriptures were written for us. Okay? We can't be like those men. We can't be like any of those men who weren't solid, in the way of Yahweh. We have to be here. We can't leave, Pastor, and come back like, oh, Pastor, I went out in the world and got hit by a truck and then got sprayed by a skunk and all of this other stuff, and I believe you're the witness now. What caused the doubts in the first place, though? Right, wrong answer, right? What caused the doubts? What crept in? We weren't paying attention to prophecy. We weren't paying attention to ourselves and the doctrine. What crept in to cause us to doubt Pastor, to doubt Yahweh? Okay, what caused these things? And he gives us so much information so that we can build our trust and our faith in him. So going back to the prophecies concerning the temple here and exposing the Catholic Church and their goals and the nations, it says that the court which is outside the temple, leave out and measure it not. It has never been done that way before. Okay, so highlight that, because that's important, because the temple was built in a specific way. Okay, but in this time period, one of the prophecies shows that it's not going to be done the way that was the way that it was done previously. Okay, the outer court is going to be left out, and it was never done that way before. But it will be this time. It's going to be done this time. The court outside the temple will be left out. It will not be part of that because there's a wall between it and the Muslim mosque, as Yechezkiah shows in his prophecy. I don't know if we have any of those temple brochures out, but we need to get them if we don't. You need to pick up one if you haven't read it and study that prophecy. Sharon actually carried that book on the Temple Mount. That was our work he took there. That started the big uproar. And so remember, part of the prophecy is that, pastor's going to minister before these world leaders. Okay? Pastor's going to minister before these world leaders. Did he do that? He did. Okay? And he continues, to reach out to spread the word of Yahweh. Okay? But pastor did this. I remember it was in the 90s, more so towards the mid to late 90s when he was really out there, doing these things. But pastor was always going around the world, doing his job, the job that Yahweh told him to do. Okay, he didn't need to be swallowed up by a fish in order to motivate him. Okay, he did what Yahweh told him to do. Experience didn't have to be his teacher. He learned from Yahweh's experience. I don't have to be eaten by a fish. I'll do it, Yahweh. All right, and that's how we should be, learning from everyone else's experiences. It says the court outside the temple is given to the nations and the holy city that will tread it underfoot. And so for it was given to the nations and the holy city, they will tread underfoot. Okay, it's given to the nations. Highlight that. Okay, highlight that. It's given to the nations. You have to know who it's given to. This means they will judge. The four nations that are involved in this: the U.S., the UN, the EU, and Russia. This prophecy is saying that judgment is given to them. That's what Elder Yedidia was showing from this article right here from CNN. I want to make it stronger with this article right here from CNN. And this article was dated December 21st, 2002. CNN later Friday obtained a copy of the draft, which has yet to be fully approved. A senior diplomat said, members of the quartet, now you remember, they started talking about the quartet quite a while ago. No one has ever noticed this but the House of Yahweh, because no one else knows the prophecies. Okay, so remember, the pastor, the House of Yahweh, was bringing out this information concerning the quartet and their role of prophecy long before these things were brought out in the news. Okay, and so you have to go back to the older tapes to hear this information. But this is like, weekly, everyday type information for us, because we've heard it for so long that, it's like, hasn't it always been like that? Well, no. The teaching started somewhere, and it started years ago in the 90s. Okay, years and years and years ago concerning these prophecies. This is amazing, man. I tell you, this is amazing. So continuing on here, the House of Yahweh, because no one else knew the prophecies. So it wouldn't mean anything to them. Remember, Yahweh said, none of the wicked would understand. It doesn't mean anything to them because they don't understand the prophecies. They don't believe the laws. Does anyone have Daniel 12:10?
Many will be purified and made white and tried, tested, but the wicked will do wickedly, and none of the wicked will understand, but the wise will understand.
Okay, excellent. And there's a lot of information in that scripture. There's a lot of information in those scriptures. One, the wicked will continue to do the things that they're doing. Okay, they'll continue to live their lifestyle and go their way, while those whom Yahweh is calling out, those who come to Yahweh's house, will continue to train and make themselves ready, to teach. Okay, we'll continue to make ourselves ready to teach. Does anyone have Revelation 7, verses 1 through 3?
And after these things, I saw four Malachim standing on the four corners of the earth, holding the four winds of the earth, so that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. And I saw another Malach ascending from the east, having the seal of the living Father, and he cried with a loud voice to the four Malachim, to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea, saying, Hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, until we have sealed the servants of our Father in their foreheads.
Praise Yahweh. So he said, it says, I saw four Malachim on the four corners of the earth. Is that what it said? Who are the four Malachim? The quartet. You sure about that? How do you know that? It was taught to you at the House of Yahweh, right? The quartet, right? But no one else knows that, right? And you know, this is the blessing that you have of being in Yahweh's house, man. Okay, it's not praise Yahweh. This is the great blessing that you have of being in Yahweh's house, because when you read Revelations before the House of Yahweh, you know, once again, you know, you saw some bear coming up out of the water with a wing and a rib in his mouth. And it's like, man, I'm not going anywhere near water as long as that bear got ribs in his mouth. Right? Leopards with like 7 heads. I don't remember how it's written, but you got all of these crazy like creatures and you're expecting to be like ate up by one or something like that. Right? But I remember when Pastor said years ago, he said, look, if you do away with anything out of the Book of Yahweh, then you're not going to have understanding. You wouldn't understand Revelations unless you knew and understood Daniel. Okay, because Daniel and his dreams and Daniel's script and the scriptures that Daniel wrote showed us about the governmental systems. Okay, and so when you look at Revelations, you can see that it's not for angels, you know, or for crazy monsters that you know, comes forth from the imagination, but it's actual, you know, people that's in control of things, governmental systems. But again, this teaching only comes forth from one place. And Yahweh is showing these things to you so that he can strengthen your faith in him. Okay, I don't care how hard you study, you're not going to come up with this information. You need a teacher. Okay, we need a teacher. All right, we need a teacher. So let's go to Rome. No? Let's go to Rome, man. There's teachers in Rome, right? No? Wrong answer again, out of the mouth of babes and sucklings, right? Yahweh says, go to his house. Go to the place where he chose to establish his name, right? Go to the house of Yahweh at Abel. And then he tells you, hey, look, you know, my servant Yisrael, he's the one that I named in scripture. He's going to be wearing linen, and this is what he's going to be teaching. He's going to establish my house. Go there and listen to him. Believe in him, right? That's where we go. That's our teacher, man. Praise Yahweh. There's none other. Praise Yahweh. All right, so continuing on here. Let's see. It says, the world. If I told the world right now what is taking place in their bodies when they commit fornication or adultery, do you think they would believe me? No. Do you think they would believe him? No. Remember, he was showing some of the results of what takes place from these unlawful relationships. And what prophetic word? What's the name of it? What's the title? Global warming, right? And the global warming prophetic word. And remember how they tried to ridicule him, you know, on TV concerning that? You know, but here, once again, I'm reminded of how awesome Yahweh is. Out of everyone in the world, one of Yahweh's great priests was able to call in and ask a great question concerning that. And Pastor was able to explain that situation. You know, one of Yahweh's priests was able to get in and ask a question. You know, and Pastor was able to explain these things. I thought that was amazing because it's like, what's the odds? I've never won anything on any radio contest. I always get the busy. Even when I used to call in for confessions, it's always busy. I never got in for anything. You know, it would be like 10 o'clock. It would still be preach your servant. Oh, praise y'all, still there? Praise Yahweh. Okay. You know, I never got in, but the great priest got in. I'm like, really? All right, praise Yahweh. But this is how Yahweh works, you know. Got him in there, got the whole house in there, and Pastor got to minister to the world what's causing these problems. Okay, but they still didn't believe. You know, you can see the fear on the one man's face, you know, like nuclear, there's no nuclear, baby. That guy's fighting me terribly. Get him out of here. You know, he was scared. You know, remember, it is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living Father Yahweh. So continuing on here, it says, you believe me because you are being taught day after day and you're watching the results. The world never watches the results. I doubt if you asked any member of the Christian world how many cases of AIDS there are right now, they would know. There are over 6 million known cases. Statistics show that only about a fourth of these cases are reported. So you can multiply that number by about 4 times. Let's see. It says a senior diplomat said members of the quartet made up of the United States, Russia, European Union, and the United States have agreed on 99.5% of this roadmap. Okay, so highlight that. A senior diplomat said members of the quartet made up of the United States, Russia, the European Union, and the United Nations have agreed on 99.5% of this roadmap. They had agreed on that. This was back in December. If you remember, I quoted Malachi Martin in his book, The Keys of This Blood. It was on page, I think it's page 15, showing that there is a 3-way competition in these last days. And that's what the scripture speaks of too. There is a competition between the nations and this leading beastly system that sits on 7 hills. This is the one that deceived and actually consumed the whole world and took them all into a westernized, sinful, lawless, rebellious stage that we now see at work in the people of the world. And remember, Jeremiah prophesied about this. Okay, remember, he said that this profaneness has gone out where? Throughout the entire world. This teaching has spread throughout the entire world, right? What other scripture shows that this lawlessness, this teaching spread throughout the entire world? And yada, right? What is 111? Is it 111? All the world has gone the way of Cain. All the world has gone the way of Cain, right? We don't need a savior. We have an immortal soul. We're all a God within ourselves. Who made you ruler and chief over us, Moshe? Right? Moshe stepped back, right? Earth opened up. Whatever took place because they didn't put their trust in Yahweh, right? So does the earth have to open up in these last days and consume us? No, like Pastor said, let me see if I can find it here. He says, you believe me because you are being taught day after day and you're watching the results. You're paying attention. Yahweh says, watch, pay attention to yourself and the doctrine. Okay, see the results of what takes place, when you don't practice Yahweh's laws, and then testify of what takes place when you do keep Yahweh's laws. Become faithful witnesses in the house of Yahweh. Did I say become the last days anointed witness? No, I said become faithful witnesses, okay? Bear righteous testimony concerning the way of Yahweh. Bring forth the man of Yahweh. Continuing on here, one of the apostles says something similar to that statement by calling it a world of disobedience. The Catholic Church, or the great city that sits on 7 hills, is the one taking the sin into the world and deceiving the whole world. So who's taking sin into the whole world and deceiving the whole world? The Catholic Church. Go ahead and highlight that, man. Okay, the Catholic Church, or the great city that sits on 7 hills, is the one taking the sin into the world and deceiving the whole world with it. So it's amazing how they'll use the word sin, but don't even know that the definition of sin is the transgression of Yahweh's laws. Okay, but they'll say, hey, you're sinning. Oh, no, we don't keep those old laws. Then you can't use the word sin then. You can't use the word sin if you're not going to apply it to the fact that, you're keeping or breaking Yahweh's laws. You can't use the word sin. Continuing on here, it says, she is teaching them to follow a desirable pattern of their own. She is teaching them to follow a desirable pattern of their own. Remember, they established their own righteousness, right? Okay, and denying the authority of it. Who has Proverbs 21, verse 2?
Every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but Yahweh weighs the heart.
But Yahweh weighs the heart, okay? There's a way that seems right in a man's eyes, right? Everything that we do, we think we're right, correct? Most of the time, we think we're correct. Without Yahweh's guidance, we're right. We're always right. Without Yahweh's guidance, we're right, okay? Before we came to Yahweh's house, couldn't tell me nothing. Even if I'm wrong, no, you're wrong, because I'm prideful. I'm prideful. No, you're wrong. I'm not wrong, right? But Yahweh weighs the heart, and we bring that stuff with us. Okay, but Yahweh knows how to get that stuff out of us. He says, I will break down your stubborn what? Yahweh says, I will break down your stubborn pride. Okay, if you walk contrary to me, I will walk contrary to you. But if you walk with me, Yahweh will bless us. Okay, he will strengthen us. He will walk with us. Okay, he will be our Father. We will be his people. But if we hold on to this pride, deceiving ourselves, then we're not going to be a part of Yahweh's family, a part of Yahweh's administration. He says he weighs the heart. The heart is what? Man, deceitful above all else. And desperately what? Wicked. And so who will not understand? We just read that in Daniel. Who won't understand? The wicked will not understand, right? The heart is deceitfully wicked above all else, right? Yahweh says a man that trusts in his heart is a what? A fool. A man who leans on his own understanding is what? Not my words. Not my words. These are the words of Yahweh. If you lean on your own understanding, you are a fool. Okay? If you trust in your own heart, you're a fool. Yahweh tests the heart. Yahweh weighs it. If you think you're right and Yahweh and his house is wrong, fool. Slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have spoken. Okay? You come here to learn from Yahweh's house, not to teach Yahweh's house. You know what you're teaching me when you rebel against pastor and the teachings of the house of Yahweh? You're teaching me that you're a fool. I guess I did learn. I guess you did teach me something, I learned that you're a fool when you do those kinds of things. Hey, that's because I'm trying to be humble so I can continue to learn. You can't learn when you're prideful. All right? Don't be a fool, man. Or don't be fools, and we all have something we need to overcome. Yahweh's working with all of us. All right, so humble ourselves to the one that Yahweh sends and trust in his administration. Yahweh set up this house to save our lives. Okay, this house has been established to save our lives, not condemn us, okay? Nothing being taught at Yahweh's house is going to cost us our lives, okay? Being rebellious to those teachings will. Okay, if we don't follow the teachings, we will die. Okay, trust in Yahweh, trust in his house. Continuing on here, 1 Yochanan 5:19. Who knows what that says? We know that we belong to Yahweh and the whole world is under the control of the gods, right? Along those lines, right? Okay. What about Isaiah 64, verse 6? You have your books of Yahweh. You could turn to it if you need to, because I do want to hear what is it? No one? All right, well, do that one for homework. I have to move on then. All right, look that one up. So continuing on here. Wow. It says, This went on in Rome among the speakers. Some of them would dare to say, we need great morality in our members. We need to choose members with high morals. The next one would get up and say, Hitler had very high morals. Don't put too much stock in morals. It depends on what you believe your morals should be. Let's see here. This is man's way because they won't study the perfect morals that are taught by the scriptures. They make up their own, right? Okay, so who could tell me what Psalms 33:4 says? I haven't asked y'all that in a while. Psalms 33:4. Yahweh's laws are right, and all of his works are done in truth, right? The laws of Yahweh are right, and all of his works are done in truth. So everything that Yahweh does is according to his law. Okay, Yahweh is the only source of power. Yahweh has eternal life, and he's offering these things to us. Okay, so if Yahweh's way is right, then how could we be wrong if we're doing what Yahweh tells us to do? Okay, not our own interpretation or understanding of what Yahweh tells us to do, but what's actually being taught at Yahweh's house. Okay, you can't go wrong when you're doing exactly what Yahweh's teaching at his house. Okay, you're safe. Okay, there's a place for you in the kingdom of heaven if you do what's taught. You don't have to be the wisest man in Yahweh's house. Okay, you don't have to be the wisest man in Yahweh's house as far as being able to just, quote scripture and all of these things. Okay, Yahweh's looking for those who will submit to him. Okay, who will follow his teachings and be an example to others. Okay, when when our minds are straightened out, remember Pastor said, you're going to be amazed at how much I've taught you. Okay, even if we can't remember all of these things right now, you're going to be amazed when the mind is cleaned up, when you have access to all of the information that we've collected over the years. Okay, you're going to be amazed at these things. I believe that. Okay, I believe that. We're constantly listening to the radio. We're constantly coming to classes. You left one class and then came to another class. Okay, this is accounted to you as righteousness. Did you know that? Oh, praise Yahweh. Some new. Keep up the great work. All right, going from class to class, day after day, and watching, okay, changing your lives to be faithful witnesses, testifying on Yahweh's behalf. Okay, this is great stuff, man. Okay, I like to call so-and-so to the stand. What do you have to say? Look at my life. I want to excuse the witness. He's acting hostile. Right? Say no one wants someone who's perfect. Like, oh, let's excuse him or her, you know. Your life is your testimony, man. You know, what you've done. Okay, remember what Yeshua said? He said, look, once a man stands before Father Yahweh, there's no need of further judgment. No need for Yahweh to examine you any further. Okay, you've done and said all that you're going to get to do and say at that moment of judgment. Okay, it's like, well, can I get 5 more years? Let me get 10 more minutes, Yahweh. Let me get 2 minutes of your time. None of that. It's it. That's it. Okay, so if Yahweh requires your life tonight, where do you stand with Yahweh? Okay, think about that. Where do you stand with Yahweh at this point? Okay, if you can do better, do better. Okay, can you do better? We all can do better. I'm glad everyone says yes because we all can do better. Praise Yahweh. And he's showing us at his house, okay? He's showing us at his house. So continuing on here. Says the quartet has agreed on 99.5% of this. Diplomats from the quartet met Friday in Washington, first at the U.S. Senate Department and then at the White House with President Bush to discuss the proposal. In a written statement after the meeting, participants said, based upon a common understanding of the content and goals of this process, the group had made substantial progress towards finalizing a roadmap for presentation to the parties in the near future. The quartet calls for an immediately, is that a typo? Comprehensive ceasefire. All Palestinian individuals and groups, they lay down the rules. There are 2 other things I want you to notice in this article. Under the draft roadmap, the quartet lays out 3 phases for Israel and Palestinians to follow. Notice, it's not in the Israelis' hands. The judgment here, as the scriptures say, is given to the nations. Okay, remember we read the 4 that it was given to. It says, it is not in their hands anymore. It is not Yahweh's judgment anymore. They are not a holy city like they were under King Solomon. It's given to all nations around them. If that were told to us 20 years ago, we probably would not believed it. Okay, we probably would not have believed it. I was actually in process at that time to bring this about. Let's see. More than 20 years ago, if you have read Malachi Martin's book, The Keys of This Blood, he says here that the competition Martin showed there was between this is a typo in the book. Okay, it should say Russia instead of the EU. So you can cross that out and put Russia. Okay, this competition was between Russia, the U.S., and the Vatican. Okay, and those were Pastor's actual words. Go ahead and highlight that. He said the Vatican is in hopes of coming out on top. Okay, highlight that. Highlight all of that there. She's the only one that wants to lay down the laws and rules for everyone else to follow. It's just about that way right now. More and more people are leaning towards her. Didn't we hear that yesterday? And who was that again? Pompeo? We heard it yesterday. And Pastor was saying, he said this like 16 years ago. This sermon was given about 16 years ago. Like all the nations, they're leaning towards her right now. And we still see these prophecies being fulfilled. Okay? Wanting the Holy See, wanting the Vatican to guide their every action. Okay? These are the secret negotiations. This is how, Catholic Church has put the tentacles, as is described, in everything, so that it can come out on top. Let's see. The problem is going to be the disagreement when they see what is taking place. The problem is that there are no laws of peace to guide this competition. Okay, there's no laws of peace. Okay, only the rules of war, rules of engagement, right? Go ahead and highlight that right there. The problem is that there are no laws of peace to guide this competition. Okay, now Yahweh has us competing, right? He says, run this race, right? Is it a lawless race? Are there any rules to in this competition? You know, are we like competing against one another? We're not competing against one another, you know. We're all running this race together, encouraging one another, you know, motivating each other to keep going. Okay, we're not running and like, oh, he's catching up, sticking out that leg so somebody can trip, right? Not supposed to be a stumbling block to your brother, right? Okay, Yahweh has rules. No, he shows us how to show care and concern, show love towards one another. Okay, it's not being shown in the world. These are some of the things we're supposed to be bearing witness to. Okay, they're trying to come out on top, but in the end, it's going to bring forth what? Destruction, death, misery, the same things that we saw in Genesis chapter 1, right? This darkness, right? False doctrine. It's all because of the teachings, right? Partaking in the tree that Yahweh said not to partake in. And we're going to bear witness to the end results of these things. Okay, while we're coming here, continuing to do what Daniel said, the wise will become wise, right? Continuing to trust in Yahweh, growing, guiding. Right now, it is very powerful. It is not like two nations competing or coming together. The scriptures show that they are combining powers. It's not just one nation having weapons of mass destruction, but 40 nations combining their weapons of mass destruction. This makes it devastating to the whole world. Okay, and so, you know, and it's not like they're all allies, you know. A lot of them are enemies. So when you have 40 nations fighting against each other, all using their weapons of mass destruction, who's going to benefit from that? No one. No one benefits from that. Okay, what's the term, MAD? Mutually assured destruction or something like that? That's what it is, you know. But guess what? They're wrong. They don't know Yahweh. You know, they're going to destroy their governmental systems and things like that. But Yahweh is going to protect his house, right? How do you know that? Prophecies. Prophecies. Man, I'm out of time here. Yahweh has rules to govern. No, I'm just playing. We're going to stop there. We're going to pick up there next week, though.